Welcome to Rates and Barrels, presented by E-Trade from Morgan Stanley. It is Thursday, July 24th. Derek VanRiper, Sarris, Trevor May here with you. We're recording this on the afternoon of Wednesday, July 23rd. So if something absolutely ridiculous happens in Major League Baseball on Wednesday night, and we're not talking about it in this episode, it's because we haven't seen it yet, which I'm sure will guarantee the absolute weirdest thing ever will happen in the next 18 hours.
Do you see that guy lose the no-hitter?
Yeah, and I would try to predict the walk-off inside the park homer that we saw a couple weeks ago, but that already happened, so it won't be that, I don't think. A second one of those.
That's the ninth. Bounce ball hits the runner. Going to happen.
All right. I like the predictions. I like where we're at. But on this episode, we're going to talk about what makes a pitcher streaky. Eno suggested that Jesus Luzardo is a streaky pitcher on Monday's episode, and I didn't pull on that thread enough, but the more we thought about it, it was like, well, hitters are streaky, so surely pitchers could be streaky as well. So we're going to try to drill into some factors that might actually cause a pitcher's performance to vary as wildly as one can vary it up. And I think we're going to find a few surprises along the way. We've got a pitching injury-related big picture question for today as well, and time permitting, we're going to squeeze in a Name That Dude later this hour. So, Trevor, when I say a pitcher is streaky, what characteristics do you think that pitcher has that causes the performance to vary up and down at a high level?
Well, I think the vast majority of the time is connected to some sort of, I don't want to say injury, but maybe something physically being out of whack. But I also think that the same logic applies to the mental side of the game. So, based on my experience with talking to a lot of pitchers, there's a whole lot of like, if it isn't broken, don't fix it. I'm gonna rinse and repeat the same things that I do to make me successful, and then you're kind of at the whim of how stubborn that person is to make adjustments or not. So, like, there's a huge variation, I think. And I think also the traditional thinking knowledge in baseball, especially guys who aren't really numbers based or aren't super empirical data based, is that it's harder to see the connections between several things that you do that tell the whole story. So if one thing gets out of whack, but everything else is normal, and maybe it's not something, it's a smaller thing, you'll just keep doing stuff and not know what's going on. And that can lead to bad streaks and good streaks, a roller coaster effect. The peaks are high and the valleys are low, and they happen regularly. I think that's probably the most common situation. It's like they don't have a very robust process for how they make adjustments, and that's why you see veteran players. The longer you go in the career and you establish yourself, that those things tend to smooth out, and those guys hang around. I don't know if it's a combination of like they're hanging around because they figured it out, but also because they're not up and down, they're also be giving up those opportunities. So it's kind of
because they figured out, like you're talking about these adjustments they've made, like maybe they figured out they have a toolbox. They have like sort of a mental Rolodex of like, I was talking to Clay Holmes about his sinker, and he's like, I pitched enough in front of the TrackMan that like I know when the sinker's catching too much, I can do this. If the sinker's not catching enough, I can do this. So the longer you're around, the more you're like, oh, this is happening. I know what to do. This is happening. I know what to do. I think generally that's probably still part of the picture for Luzardo, who actually, in my statistical analysis, didn't end up being on the streakier side. But I do see these. There's also a question of like streakiness within a season and streakiness year to year. And streakiness year to year speaks to me of sort of growth, like you'll see guys who have a tough year early on just because they don't know how to put their pitches together. They're a young guy who comes up, a Clark Schmidt in his first season, where he's like, I know I have these weapons, but I don't know what actually works in the big leagues. I don't know how to like get through a whole start. I don't know my identity yet. So, when I put together this list here, and this was just using the like month to month standard deviation of WOBA allowed. So basically, since 2020, who had the biggest ups and downs with months, and I think what we're circling in on a little bit is youth. Now, it's not obvious right across the board, but when you look at the streakiest pitchers, Osvaldo Bido is number one, Bowden Francis, Grayson Rodriguez, Ryan Weathers, Shane Baz. The top 5 streakiest guys are all young. I would say none of those guys is established as a major leaguer. So all those guys are still trying to find their footing. They've had really bad months. They've had some good months. Then you get to Tony Gonsolin, but Hunter Brown has established himself, but in the record is still those years when he was bad, when he was a young guy who hadn't figured out, oh, I need a sinker, I need to do this. So there's definitely something about youth. The steadiest pitchers, a lot of them are established. Jose Soriano, Cole Reagans, Zach Wheeler, Paul Skeens. Skeens isn't established necessarily, but Wheeler is. Justin Steele's on that list. Max Fried's on that list. So there's something to that. But you'll notice I kind of put in their stuff, their locations, and the number of pitches. The effect isn't large, but the streakiest pitchers had a 98.9 career location plus, and the steadiest pitchers had a 102 location plus. The streakiest pitchers had 3.5 pitches on average. The steadiest pitchers had 3.7. These aren't huge differences, but there's something there, I think, too. When we talk about like a toolbox, wouldn't it help if you were a starting pitcher to have more pitches? Like you get to the park and you're like, dang, my slider's not here today. Like you, even as a reliever, added more pitches over the course of your career.
Yeah, having more pitches is important. But then again, if you have a bunch of pitches but you don't know when to throw them, Clark Schmidt, for example, it doesn't matter. That's when it doesn't matter because it comes down to where's the confidence. So that is interesting though, because I think that command and location is maybe the through line, is the thing that if that improves, your peaks and valleys can continue to smooth out a little bit as well. Just because if you're a stuff guy, like missing a spot could mean a bunch of different things. If you're just missing out the plate, guys are standing there. That's a absolute zero value for you, walking people and throwing balls that are not swung at. Like that's just all 100% of them. But at the same time, you could also have such good stuff that you get swings and misses, which is the other way. So like you're getting a lot of that, either free stuff for them or free stuff for you, and that wild flipping back and forth shows up in your streakiness. But if you're a command guy and maybe the stuff isn't great, you know that you can hit spots at any given time, the results are going to be more consistent with that. And if you're making changes based on stuff as opposed to making changes based on location, I think that has a lot to do with that streakiness for a hitter.
Yeah, command as a skill makes a lot of sense here because you have the variance caused in your ratios from homers. So if you have command problems, you might run into homer problems, or you have the walk problems that you've already talked about. And the first player I thought of when we said streaky pitcher was Blake Snell. I mean, when he's good, he wins Cy
Thankfully,
Youngs.
he's on my streaky pitcher list.
Yeah, he showed up on there. Both Snell and Dylan Cease were the two that, like, year to year, their bars for performance are very wide. Like, they can win Cy Youngs, but they could also pitch like number 4 starters that miss a lot of bats when they get just enough bad starts kind of mixed into one season, or just a few of those outings where the command wasn't quite right.
I feel like their streaks are long. Like those are like when they're not great for a while, which tells me there's something messed up physically. Like especially with Snell, like his poor seasons have literally been directly correlated with like a back issue. Like he's just not throwing the ball the same way, and his brain is saying, all right, get that there, and there's times where he can get it there and then his body won't do it. Sometimes it's hard to, some guys just like don't want to be hurt, so they're willing to put up with that stuff for longer than others, right? Oh, and there's other guys like, I feel something, I'm going on the IL, so they avoid the dip because they're not hurt. Like, so there's how willing are you to make that decision and how quickly? That also has something to do with it. Like, I always say this, or this is said very commonly in baseball, is like, yes, being hurt sucks, but at least you can't suck if you're not on the field, right? So you also can't earn your spot. So if you're
Can't lose your
if
spot,
it's
can't
between
earn your
being
spot.
hurt or sucking, you choose being hurt. And you learn that over time as well, where guys are like, I know that I can't actually be good if I'm pitching right now. I could probably figure out how to be on the mound, but I won't be as effective as I can be. So what's the point? Figuring out that line is also part of it. You allow yourself to avoid these horrible collapses, and then you go on the IL, even though you were hurt the whole time. That's a lot of it. That is a lot of it.
Yeah, Cease is an interesting cat, though, because I can see him being put into the same category as Snell when you look at year-to-year results and you look at their arsenal. They're very similar. You know, fastball, breaking ball, a lot of velo, maybe not the best command, go for the strikeout, big up and down years. But, Cease doesn't really have that health component to it. I mean, he's been pretty steady at 180 innings for 4 years in a row now. I think that's where the size of Arsenal comes in. I was just watching, I know it's today, Wednesday, but just watching him pitch against the Marlins. And he had Jesus Sanchez. I think he was facing him the third time, facing a lefty. As a righty, you've shown him your fastball and your slider over and over again. And, I even talked to him about this, Dylan, recently, and he's like, yeah, but, why do I throw my third best pitch? He threw his third best pitch, his knuckle curve, to Jesus Sanchez, who took him deep. And, it's just the size of the arsenal is really the biggest thing that leaps off the page for me for Dylan Cease. I mean, even if you talk about his command, his career location plus is 100 and his career walk rate is 9.8. Like it's not quite Snellian. It's just size of arsenal. So I was a little surprised that the number of pitches wasn't a larger effect. But you've got somebody like Jose Soriano, who's largely a 2-pitch pitcher. If I looked into it a little bit more, I wonder if, there's something about sinker ballers versus four-seamers. If you are primarily a 4-seam pitcher, like Dylan Cease, I kind of feel like Shane Baz, Tony Gonsolin, Luis Heel, Blake Snell, Walker Buehler, when he was good. A lot of these guys, even Bubic, you're primarily a 4-seam guy. You're going to live high in the zone. And if you miss a little bit with your command, maybe your hamstring's hurting, maybe whatever it is, some small thing, I feel like you could get into a bad streak pretty quickly. Whereas, sinker guy like Jose Soriano, I think Davis Martin is a sinker guy. Wheeler's kind of fastball sinker. Skeens is a sinker guy. Fried throws a sinker. Schwelly throws a sinker. So, Lopez has that good changeup. Sandy Alcantara's on the steady pitcher side. So there's some sinkers over there. And I just wonder, maybe sinker reduces some of your upside. Like if you're just a sinker guy, like, other than Skeens, primarily sinker guys, may not have the same upside. I think of like Clay Holmes right now as a starting pitcher. But you may be less streaky. You may just be able to kind of be steadier because you can get the double play. You can get ground balls when you need them sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean,
I agree with that.
when you're throwing a sinker, the margin of error is, do I give up a single or a double? A lot of times, I mean, you can give up a homer and a sinker, but just like a lot of times it seems like do I give up a single or a double or get a week out? And for the 4-seamer, the question is, do I get that whiff I want, or whoops, that was a homer?
Yeah. That in itself, right there, like I said, zero value for you or maximum value for them. A lot of binary options with 4-seams, and I think sinker, honestly, in the arsenal, just in general, people throwing sinkers, it's become. I love the idea that it's a hedge pitch. You're hedging damage a little bit. You can use it that way. You're trying to get people away from your 4-seam so that doesn't become so binary, or you can get away with more mistakes.
Think of Hunter Brown before he added the sinker, wasn't he? It was like homers.
He was getting torched, and then suddenly he added something that went inside, and not only did it make his 4-seam way better, which is incredible this year, but it also just became a softer. It's something he didn't have before, and guys would swing at it thinking it was a 4-seam trying to get it, and they would hit it right at third and get a ground ball. He's like, oh, I got a ground ball. And that never happens. Like all of those are benefits of that. So that's why we've seen 2 or 3 fastballs from most guys, is because you kind of need that hedging, because you can't ride the roller coaster as heavily and stick around.
Why do some people have such trouble adding pitches? Like Dylan Cease, as far as I can tell, has an aptitude he listens to his pitching coaches. He does the edger work. He does he looks into his mechanics. He's changed his changeup over time. He used to have a knuckle curve and went to the slider. So he's changed some of his pitches, but he has like had a hard time adding a third pitch. Blake Snell has thrown the changeup and the slider and the curve all at different times, but he really falls into certain patterns and like really loves a pitch after a while. I don't understand why some pitchers just like Lugo's just out here being like, I've got 25 pitches. And Dylan Cease is like, I'm really trying to add a third.
I think the same thing about like Verlander. Like for some reason, there's no sinker, seam shifted anything. And that's, for me, it's obvious that he needs that. He just doesn't do it. I thought he would add a sinker this year.
Yeah, does that go back to the stubbornness you were talking about up top, though? Like, I mean, you're like the rigidity, the not wanting to make adjustments because what has worked well for so long.
But he famously made a big adjustment. He left Detroit and went to Houston.
Known for this.
Yeah. I would say that I did have one conversation with him because we've been talking. I'm doing a piece about IVB and vertical movement, and I was talking to him, and he said that the thing that separates him is not necessarily just his IVB, because he does throw from a high slot, so you'd expect some of his vertical movement. What he does is he has like a 2-plane fastball, and so he said what actually separates me is the fact that I have a 4-seam fastball with great ride and 10 inches of arm side movement. There aren't a lot of guys who throw, basically 18s and 19s plus 10, because a lot of times when you're doing that, you're cutting it. You're not getting that same sideways. Yeah. So maybe he just thinks if I throw, and he also, there is this thing of like, if you've had a big adjustment and a big thing that changed your whole career, and that adjustment was, hey, Justin, stop throwing your 2-seamer. It's just an average 2-seamer. Then maybe it's hard to go back. You're like, wait, I just made my whole career getting rid of this pitch. Why do you want me to throw it again?
Yeah, there's a chance that he just depending on how because he's not necessarily a supinator. He might be a pronator. I just because he's got very true spin, more so than most guys. It looks like his hand is turning over, and he might just be directly behind the ball, which makes seam shifting the ball very hard. Very, very hard. So he might just have tried it and be like, oh, there's nothing there. Like nothing's. And I can't command it either. And I'm just not getting there's no Scooble. Oh, wow. I'll just turn it and it does that. That's crazy. Now it's the best pitch in the major leagues. He just, that seam shifting hasn't benefited him that way. And I think it's pretty crazy to think that he hasn't tried it. 100% he has. Things have not gone as well as we want them to go. He's probably tried everything, but it just might not be there. And I would say with anybody, Justin Verlander, that's a good assumption. You can assume he's at least tried most things.
Yeah, I would assume that of almost any pitcher. Even Christian Javier, he's been throwing 2 pitches forever. I'm sure he's worked on his changeup and worked. I mean, sometimes he does throw the changeup more often. Another guy I think of is Bailey Falter, who he had a great start on Wednesday, and I've talked to him about this where I'm like, dude, what about your changeup? And he's like, I've tried every changeup grip there is to man, known to man. I've tried everything. Right now he's doing a splitter and it doesn't look great. It's doesn't do much. It drops 3 or 4 inches more than his fastballs. It's not a good pitch. And for what it's worth, he hasn't ever made a good secondary pitch. He's Mr. Fastball. But I do think there might be something about the way he throws his fastball that makes it hard for him to add other pitches. He's extremely over the top with a 55-degree arm angle, and he has among the most extension in the big leagues. And I just wonder if you're throwing hammers like that, you know what I mean? Like, just imagine you're 55 degrees up and you're way out. I could see there being like, how do I finish a breaking ball now? You know, like I am just way up in the sky, and I could see why a changeup would be almost impossible from that sort of angle, where you're just crowding your shoulder too, right? Like you're at 55 degrees, like either your whole body is down or you're crowding your shoulder.
Front tilt. Yeah,
or
get out
both.
of the way.
Yeah,
a good comp actually with Falter, the way you just said, was Caleb Thielbar, the 56, really high, but he throws a big, slow curveball, and that's his whole thing. That and his 92.5 or whatever looks like 97, just because he jumps at you too. He's got crazy extension too. So maybe Falter needs. I don't know if he does. If he has a
12.77 on the curveball, it's kind of slow. It doesn't get that much drop though.
It doesn't. It's literally just because he throws it up in the zone so much. He tunnels it really well with his four seam. That he's very like up in the air, like everything's vertical up. He looks like he throws like a trebuchet.
Yeah,
to nerd it out. Like it's just hard to.
He throws a lot of high curveballs. You're right. Look at that.
Throws a ton of high curveballs. Guys just stand there. He throws the top of the zone so much. But Falter's delivery kind of gives me that like something that goes straight down, even if it doesn't break that much, even if it backs up, like it just tunnels with your fastball, especially if you want to throw your fastball. Like that's your best chance because of the nature of the way you throw.
Yeah. But again, like just back to Dylan Cease, like there's nothing when I watch Dylan Cease that I'm like, oh, that's a really unique set of skills. Like he's a power pitcher with a great slider. It's like, I don't know. I'm surprised. I think that the knuckle curve isn't better. I'm surprised that he hasn't been able to seam shift to some change up, some like a power change where he's just gripping it and ripping it. I don't know.
I was surprised that we saw Sandy Alcantara on your stable side of the list. I mean, he pitched really well. Again, looking at Wednesday, 7 scoreless, 4 Ks. Exactly what you're hoping for for the Marlins. Like, let's get a couple nice starts in before the break or before the deadline, and let's see if we can work out some kind of deal. But I guess even within the last season before Sandy had TJ in 2023, maybe even though it was a down year, it was just even month to month. It wasn't flying all over the place where it was a 6.50 ERA 1 month and a 2 the next, right? It was just a full downturn that he sustained start by start.
Yeah, there's definitely some surprises on here. I mean, the sinker thing, I used WOBA, so there might be an interesting thing where their ERA standard deviation might be different, because WOBA is just like what you allow to the hitters, and then ERA is like sequencing of the events that happen. So you could allow like a 400 slugging to hitters and have a 6 ERA or have a 3.5 ERA. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Depending on when the slugging happens and when the OBP happens. So with Sandy, maybe he was actually fairly steady in terms of what he was allowing hitters to do, but maybe like away from home, all the homers came at the right moments. I'm really surprised to see Jack Flaherty on the.
Yeah, that was the other name. I'm like, Jack Flaherty's on there because year over year, that sort of consistency hasn't been there.
Yeah. I'm not surprised to see Zach Wheeler. Like Zach Wheeler and Cole Reagans were the kinds of guys that I was expecting to see on there, where it's just like, these are large arsenal command and stuff, guys that like, if one pitch isn't working, they can go to a different pitch. They've shown that they have adjustability on the mound. Those are the kind of pitchers like Jose Soriano is like honestly surprised to see there. Not because like, if you look at his career, it's been fairly steady, in terms of top line results, but under the hood, it's been crazy. Like he's like a 2-pitch guy who's had like 2 Tommy Johns and like doesn't have great command and like has all these other pitches and never uses them. And I just figured that's not the type that is going to end up on the steadiest pitchers list. But that, again, maybe the sinker has something to do with that.
Yeah, high ground ball rate, low home run rate, year over year over year. I think that's where you get the consistency from Soriano.
Yeah. And then Tony Gonsolin's like the opposite. He's on the streakiest. I mean, he's a vertical guy with a four seam, not the greatest stuff, not the greatest command. And we've seen some really great runs from Tony Gonsolin. I'm not at all surprised to see Tony Gonsolin on the streakiest side. You know, he's been both things where it's like, how is he doing this? And then, oh yeah, all right, these are the bad days.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he also only averages about 60 innings a year. So, like, he's just also just
so
hurt.
there's that
Like,
the injury component you're talking about. Like,
time.
if something's out of whack, like you're going to be inconsistent and streaky.
That makes a lot of sense. If you're either pitching at 70% or you're just fresh off the IL, so you're still not all the way back, you're still knocking off rust. All those factors would probably wreak a little bit of havoc in here as well.
I would put it out to the Discord. Like, there could be further analysis on this because you could look at sort of start to start consistency, you know, and you could look at something that's like a rolling WOBA and like distance from rolling WOBA. That's something that Bill Petty once did for hitters, where he basically had a sort of rolling baseline of your production and then like looked at your sort of week to week variation around that. And then he created a stat called variability, which was like the distance of your ups and downs, you know, across that rolling WOBA. So if you could do something like that with the pitchers, you might actually get a better sense of who's having bigger streaks start to start. This is month to month, you know, which is a collection of starts. So that some of that streakiness, and also what you can tell is, you know, when you're just like, hey, I have 4 years of start to start of month to month variance, you're just going to get a lot of the guys, the streakier guys, are just many guys who made huge changes in that time. So like Ryan Weathers and Hunter Brown, you know, are only on this list. Luis Heel broke out in this. Chris Bubich broke out in this sample. So, you know, they're going to look streaky just because they broke out in the sample.
Interesting way to think about it too. I was thinking maybe location plus on a game by game basis, looking at that, how much that fluctuates. I was using Sandy 2023 as an example. Even that looks like there's a wider range for a guy who came up as consistent by WOBA results. Like I would have expected a tighter range on what we see in that game log. I don't know. I think you're right. More to dig into here, but I think streaky pitchers absolutely exist, and defining them is just a little bit trickier than it might be defining streaky hitters. I think we have those characteristics pinned down a little bit more clearly at this point.
All right, Trevor, I've got a question for you. A friend of mine is in high school and he's throwing low 80s, got a nice cutter. He's on the varsity in his freshman year, so he's got something going. But he's had some elbow issues, and he's had a platelet, you know, thing already, and he's stepped back off of pitching this summer. So what he wants to do is spend the summer basically rehabbing, basically building up his body and building up. He's decided not to play travel ball, not to pitch through the summer. And what he wants to know is, like, what should he be working on his body when he's not pitching? Like, what are some, like, maybe this relates to off-season work that you did to build up for the season, or just rehab work when you couldn't throw? What were the kind of things you did? My inclination is, because I've seen your quads, work on legs. So I wonder, you know, if you had some specific exercises that you like to do. I've also, Jed Lowry was talking a little bit about putting the brakes on, like giving your body the brakes. So as much as you want to give your body the ability to produce power, we'll also put the brakes on. And so I wonder if those words mean anything to you, and what sort of work you did coming back from injury or in the off seasons that you might recommend to a young kid.
That's a great question. I've been thinking about this a lot lately too. Well, to address the quads comment, it's going to sound very professional athlete, but that's natural.
Those are just my quads.
I never, lower body lifting was very minimal all through my career. It was a lot of like balance because I'm just carrying my body around, and I'm what they call quad dominant, meaning I lean forward and my quads are activated at all times for the most part
while you're walking around.
So like that,
but it is common for a lot of pitchers to do leg work.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%. And most guys are hyper mobile, and they're like calf hamstring dominant. So like they naturally more, like their balance is more on the back of their heels. So for example, you try to push them backwards, they would catch themselves more. If I'm walking forwards, it's very hard to trip me. But if you trip me backwards, I'm going down because I'm just forward on my toes. So like my calves are very tight and my quads are very tight. You're the other way, your shins get really tight, you get shin splints, and your hammies get really tight. The front on the lower end and the back on the upper part of your leg, and then vice versa based on the way you balance. So your body is just compensation. It's all you do. Like we all do that. Something hurts, your body naturally starts to recruit new muscles to protect that area. And so that's where I would start with the elbow and figuring out where he's weakest, and then getting those things as strong as possible. And there's a lot of like different ways to do that. There's a lot of experts out there, tons of YouTube stuff now, and like Tread does good stuff around this. The Jaeger programs does good stuff around this. A lot of academies out there that just have free information out there. But if you're having an elbow issue, it's usually because you're bypassing. There's something that's not working somewhere. And then of course there's just like limits. Like we can't throw 110. If you throw 110 every time, it doesn't matter how perfectly in sync you are. Eventually your moving parts are going to wear out. So that's what I would think about it that way, because the goal would be to improve a lot of the things. For example, back of the shoulder. You mentioned lower body. That might be something if he's a mobile guy. If he's naturally pretty flexible. Think of the Tyler and Taylor Rogers of the world. They're very, very they're hyper mobile to the extreme. Most pitchers
also
are that
like
way.
If you're trying to build velo, isn't your force into the ground surprisingly
a big part of it? Yeah, it starts there.
Yeah.
So if you can start with a big number into the ground, the chances that you maintain that number through the tips of your fingers when you throw it are higher. So it's funny because you look at like a guy like Jake Mizorowski. Is he super duper strong? I probably would take anybody in the league against him in an arm wrestling match. But he is hyper mobile, and he can basically keep his hand so far away from his front hip for so long that once he fires, it's like the most rigid rubber band ever snapping back together. That's what he does. But the problem with that is sometimes your elbow is part of that, goes out of its range a lot, and that's where those guys get hurt. In their elbow anyway. So the legs, though, for a younger guy, 100%. And also, I think even for a guy 15, 16, 17 years old, lifting is kind of starting to become part of your routine. Most strength guys start you on your legs because they're just big, strong muscles that you don't need perfect, like your form doesn't need to be perfect right away. And you're not as in danger of hurting yourself if you're just like doing trap bar or dumbbell lunges or something. It's usually like, it takes a lot of force to hurt a quad while you're
right.
So
and then
yes,
but so the more it's a little bit more tricky when you say let's talk about like building up your back, so that it is supporting your arm better.
Yeah.
Other than he's obviously doing he's doing the Jaeger band work already.
Yeah.
What are like there's just lifting that you can do to work on the back, but it can be a little bit tricky. I remember when I was lifted more often, I actually tore my teres minor. So they're not the biggest muscles in your back actually, and you can do exercises wrong. But what are some key exercises you would do for back strength?
That's another great question. So I want the through line being your legs start your process, and then your hips take over, and then your core, and then your back, and then your shoulder, and then your elbow, then your hand. Right. So that is usually the points that are receiving the most force. And you can work on each one of them and think of them kind of individually and work through it. So if we're building just general force in the leg, you're young, you're 15, just generally being stronger in the ground. That'd be good thing. Okay. And you can do static stuff. And I always preferred lunges, single leg stuff, just because I was so naturally strong. I needed actually to control it. I needed to control myself. Mine was all about control. he's about strength. I didn't need to build strength. I need to build control. So if you're building strength, though, that's a better situation to be in. But for the back, for example, there's a lot of great stuff, especially because as he learns about arm care with the arm brands and stuff, the scap mobility, how the I guess the muscle underneath your shoulder blade that moves your shoulder forward and back is huge in pitching. Like that was the first thing they told me when I became a professional. Like your scap, we're just going to talk about your scaps constantly. So when it comes to back stuff, getting into extension or extension or contraction, meaning like flexing them or trying to lengthen them out, is you're just building the most range you can. So you could like lay on a table, do dumbbell flies, and just hold the extension. So it's not about heavy weight as much as it's about getting to your full range and being really strong with that in that range. That's a great way to think about your back. Another thing, though, for me, I'm very back dominant as a compensation for my quad dominance. So because I lean forward, then my back picked me back up. So I was just like zigzagging myself up when I stand. Everyone does that to some extent. But my back is so strong and then also very tight. My core, though, wouldn't be. And I would get on my core. So building my core strength is more important because my back was already strong, but I needed to match him so I could be controlled.
So to some extent, he needs to find out about his body. He needs to sort of,
where are you the strongest? Where is he the strongest?
And then where you're not, work on the things work on the things that, and if he isn't mobile in certain directions, like work on mobility. And so you might want to work on mobility in some places and strength in other places.
Exactly. And if you really look at yourself, every part of your body, lower leg, upper leg, hips, trunk, so it's core and back together, shoulder, you'll either be good forward, good backwards. One side will be tighter than the other, probably, and they usually line up. And the tight ones are where you're the strongest because they are the one they're contracted all the time. So then you work on strengthening the other side to not necessarily line yourself up, but like any of those weak places could be where you're just kind of the power is just, you're losing it there. Like as soon as you hit
I'm
that
listening
spot,
now for my running because my Achilles are the ones that tend to hurt and tend to be sore. And there must be some weakness somewhere else that I can work on when I do my core exercises and when I do my weightlifting that I can make.
I actually know a lot about that. It's either the instep of your foot, like so your arch, like your toe, like your toes you're not using all your toes to run, which is common because shoes are terrible. It's either that or the front of your shins and your front of your ankles are also weak. So your Achilles takes over to keep your ankle stable. So it's one of those two things. Probably
stronger.
It's not fun, but you can literally do like shin curls and like toe raises for your calves, and you kind of do them opposite to each other because you're strengthening both sides, and your legs get destroyed when you're a runner. So that's also not fun. But there's some like movement prep where you warm your shins up, so then they work when you run, and then your Achilles don't hurt as much. Usually it's just because they're not like turned on,
activated.
Yeah, they're just like, I'm gonna take the day off again because I never have a day on.
Right.
Well, I feel like we're talking about
like no muscle on my shins, by the way. Like I feel it. It's like it's just bone there.
I know the varying resources as you move further into the game. It's even within organizations, though, there's a lot of variance. Some teams probably have a great team of people that can understand your body and figure these things out and troubleshoot you correctly. Other teams don't have that. And then if you're at the amateur level, you have to seek these facilities and these specialists.
Or a free agent even.
So, if you're a free agent, you have to do this on your own. I mean, so if you're in this situation that Eno's describing, you're a high school freshman, should you go see a physical therapist right now to learn more about how your body works? And like, it's got to be someone who actually specializes in this exact kind of thing that can give you the right information to even get you on the right path.
I think this has led
to train
to the
yourself
rise
properly.
Of treads and drive lines is
specialized. It's because it's accessible. It's hard. It's hard. But it's so funny because there's so many people in pretty much every major city who have a lot of this expertise. And maybe they do tennis or something. Like they don't like do Tommy John surgery, so they're not in baseball, but they're like, yeah, that's how the body works. Like it's like that in every sport. Basketball has its own set of compensations and certain injuries you see all the time. Tennis has its own, golf has its own, anything with rotation. We see obliques blowing out all the time because one oblique strong. Like it's always compensation, especially with especially with baseball more than anything, because we usually rotate in one direction, and we rotate in one direction as hard as we can.
This gets to the brakes. Is brakes something you heard about more from one organization or another? Like, is putting the brakes on just like if you are going to do something to build strength, like let's say I'm taking the heavy medicine bag and I'm throwing it against the wall, then make sure you also do it the other way. Like make sure you do every exercise both ways, or what do you when you hear Jed talk about brakes, what does that mean to you?
That is part of it. Doing both, and a lot of people think, oh, it's to even myself out. No, you're not trying to even yourself out, because that compensation is actually what makes you bet good, like the only rotation one way. But what it does is it allows your body to continually think that you need those other muscles. Even if you're not using them as much, they still will stay active, because if they're dormant for long, then they stop working. That's how the body literally works. So it's more in that way. It's to keep them awake. And also, I think there's a little bit of a stigma, or maybe a train of thinking where just go, work, grind, work, all the like. And sometimes you just need to stop for a bit, like just completely stop and let yourself reset, just like anything else. Because baseball is like, it's the pride in being a grinder or grinding is really great most of the time, but sometimes it can be detrimental for your ability to slow down. Which it's funny, I have that now with this. Like I can't stop because that's what I just did. It worked so well for baseball for so long, and then suddenly you're like, oh, I actually don't know how to rest at all. And so that is what he's talking about, I think. But he was a switch hitter, like he has a lot of experience with the importance with making sure you're maintaining the whole thing, as opposed to I'm just trying to keep from
you're
using something too much.
You throw with the right hand.
Yeah, like there's only so much I can do.
But I also, I think of breaks as like, when your hand is going 90 miles an hour to throw the ball, it has to stop going 90.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Like literally
the brakes,
like actual deceleration.
Practicing deceleration as well as acceleration.
Right.
Yeah. And it comes down to control. Like all this is like, you're either strong, you need to be strong, you need to have strength within your range. So this is both mobility and strength. And then that bleeds into.
That's why you're talking about sometimes it's small weights and like keep small weights in a certain movement where you're like holding it, because then you're showing your ability to sort of control that movement through.
Exactly. Though there's like in pro ball, and actually high schools are starting to getting on this a little bit more, but like they're doing arm care. Arm care is all built on getting to the very end of your range, wherever your strength is, and holding stuff. Like always, everything is like that, because your strength within whatever your natural range is, if you need to extend it a little bit to stay healthy, you figure out what that is. And then within that range, you want to be as strong as you can be in the entire range, as opposed to super strong in the middle and weak in the beginning and the end. That's where stuff starts to compensate too much. And then you get an injury that feels unrelated, but it's because like your calf hurts because your shoulder's not very strong. That happens. And it's hard to catch when you're just talking to your team doc. He looks at you for 3 seconds. I think it's orthopedic because that's the type of doctor I am. I've had that happen a couple times. Stuff was misdiagnosed for 6 months because they're like, I'm used to looking at feet, and
and this is an arm,
and it seems muscular to me, but that's not my piece, and that's not their fault. But like, I had to find out what was wrong with me. Sometimes you got to take the initiative. But I think there
Jed is nodding furiously off screen.
Yeah.
But did you see any trends in this over your time in the game where there was different exercises and movements that you were doing early on and then late?
Ooh, so many. My routine changed like crazy. The first thing that everyone always saw was just every new medical guy was like, your hips are tight as heck. You need to figure that out. And
yoga.
Pilates and yoga was my reaction to the core, and yoga was my reaction to the hips.
Nice.
Moving, lateral movement. I was super straight up. And I was actually thinking this. It's funny. I was thinking about the show, and I was thinking about this in the car. You can notice a really great way that this is illustrated that you can see daily in baseball is how guys run. Like the difference between Chandler Simpson and Byron Buxton, for example. Byron is very fast if you put him on a sprinting block. But if you made him start sideways and go, Chandler Simpson's way faster at turning and going. He's quicker. But Byron's just as fast. He's just not as quick. And me, once I get going, I can get some force running straight up. But if you need me to run in zigzag, there's no way. Like with the Mets, a great example was like Nimmo always looked like he was moving, but like he's like a fullback. He's fast once he just gets up to speed slower because he's very like hypo mobile. But then there's super quick guys that can get going up to speed much, much faster. And you can see it. You can tell that guy is more mobile than that guy because he gets
This
going
is
faster.
why times to first are more predictive of your stolen base acuity than sprint speed.
Because out of the box is so important.
Yeah, because that's starting. That's your starting.
Out of the box is
that
quickness that you're talking about, that movement. You know?
It's a functional athletic move to get out of the box quickly down to first base, just like it's
very
being
similar
side on to second, to turn and run to second base on a stolen base. It's the same kind of thing.
That's why guys that are fast can't steal. And you're like, why don't they steal more? They're fast. It's because the instincts aren't there and they don't have the athletic first or last movements down. And that's the next part of stealing a base, not just about speed.
Yeah, it's a lot of balance and coordination and time. It's a lot of other things that we just don't think a lot about that matter quite a bit. Interesting.
And Nimmo, also last thing on Nimmo, how does Nimmo's games changed since he signed his contract? He's like, I'll just be pretty fast and then be a top guy because I'm strong and I like this.
He's totally changed his game. He's more
100%.
He's more of a power
great.
hitter, and he's
He's found where he belongs, and he stayed healthy because he wasn't trying to be the leadoff athletic center fielder guy because it's not who he was. It just wasn't.
Yeah, I see more similarities between Nimmo and Christian Yelich than like a lot of other players. Like I think we don't have the peak from Nimmo that we saw from Yelich a few years ago, but I think they do a lot of things well in similar ways.
Fully.
All right, we got one more segment to go. That was really, really interesting stuff because it's important. It's putting the right work in. It's not just putting the work in. It's like knowing that what you're doing is actually helping you solve the problems you have, which might be very unique to your own body. And I think the younger an athlete is, the harder it is to get the exact right information and the right people steering you in the right direction. There are plenty of, let's say like middle school and high school coaches that are trying to help you, but they actually don't know what they're doing in instances like that. So critically important.
I think you guys just gave me, I think I finally figured out a great way to maybe have these conversations with people and just make myself available just to talk like high level about it. Just like, these are the types of things that are always going to be there. You're compensating. Here's a couple of the patterns. Now, where do we go find information on this for people who study it and focus on it and have great information? Because that's the thing. Like, okay, you told me that. Now, what do I do? And I don't know enough about everything because it's like a lot, right? But I can point you to people that I think that do it. And so, like, maybe put myself out there to let people ask me questions. Like, kids ask me questions very specifically, like, my elbow hurts. What should I do to figure this out? Because I've had to do that a lot. Mm-hmm. It stinks when you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, can't be fun. Another thing I thought of when you were talking about having to zigzag, having to move in different patterns is one of the PT things that was recommended for me at one point was rock climbing, because it's so different than running and things that keep you in one plane. It forces your body to just move in different ways. And I think a lot of times it's an unexpected answer that's actually good for you physically. I never would have thought, oh yeah, rock climbing is totally the right
Joe Ryan might be like, go swimming.
Right. Yeah.
Glenn Perkins is big on swimming because he was so mobile that built him all this strength. He was doing his big, long, like gangly arms, but he had to pull himself through the water. And he's like, oh, I'm getting stronger in a way that fits within my body.
It's a little bit like pitching. Yeah.
It's a little bit like pitching. And by the way, another weird thing that people throw out there, you'll see this on YouTube or whatever sometimes, but like people bear crawling or they bear crawl around or they walk backwards a lot.
Yeah. That's a big one too. Yeah, backwards walking.
Just to feel like their glutes take over for a while because they stop them because they never use them. And they're like, oh wow, I'm really not. This is why my back hurts all day. It's because I'm just sitting in these like these two groups of muscles have been holding my body up for 24 hours.
If you want to try a simple thing that is probably good for you, for the overwhelming majority of people out there that sit at a desk chair all day, walking backwards, you are 100% right. It forces you to just use muscles that you don't normally use. Do it for a block on your street.
Find a hill or something, and just walk up a block, and it'll change your life.
Legs will be burning, but it'll be a good burn. It'll be good for you. All right, it's time for the game that has been sweeping the nation for 2 years now. I think, speaking of sweeping, I think Trevor has swept the season series so far.
I don't know if I've ever won one. Maybe one?
I think you got one last season. I got to check the history books, which, for as popular as this game is, you'd think the history books would be easier for me to get at, but it's Name That Dude. I provide a series of clues about a mystery player. Eno and Trevor try to guess who that player is after each round of clues. Producer Brian, I think, actually wins more often than not, although now he can actually see the answer. He couldn't before. So that aspect of the game has been unfortunately ruined by some things that are happening backstage. But good news, we have a really interesting player for today's Name That Dude. Your first clue, I was born January 8th, 1973 in LaGrange, Georgia.
Their second LaGrange.
Are there people out there that just like
they know
where
things.
People are born?
Yes, they remember these things. There are some people
I
that
played with a
remember.
guy from LaGrange, but it's not him. Something Knowles is his last name. Anyway, continue.
I made my major league debut in 1995 for the White Sox.
Adam LaRoche?
It's not Adam LaRoche. And I was drafted in the 18th round of the 1991 draft out of high school.
Well, let me just run through all the rounds of the 1991 draft.
Yeah.
How do you not remember this? Come on, you guys.
There's two. I should remember this.
Played 17 years in the big leagues and won 3 Gold Gloves.
Oh, so it's not Frank Thomas.
It's not. I'll give you a clue. Yes, it's not Frank Thomas.
Okay.
I made 1 All-Star team.
Oh, gee.
I finished my career with 46.7 BWAR by hitting 278 homers and stealing 297 bases.
Well, it's not Brzezinski.
It's not Brzezinski, no. I hit double-digit home runs in a season 12 times in my career. And I stole double-digit bases every season from 1997 through 2008.
Oh, wait. Was he he was a giant. Ray Durham?
No.
Oh,
That's a good
I thought I
guess.
had it, dude.
It's a good
I
guess.
thought
You didn't, I
it.
didn't. I felt bad telling you didn't have
Hey,
it.
Durham.
I feel good about that one.
I could
Ray
feel the
Durham played
positive
up
energy coming through the
2012
screen.
Did he play till 2012? So it's a long-term player.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I gave you the debut. I did not give you the final game. I played my final major league game in 2011.
Jeez.
Teams I played for included the White Sox, Reds, Mariners, Mets, Padres, Brewers, Red Sox, and Marlins.
Wait, do the teams again?
White Sox, Reds, Mariners, Mets, Padres, Brewers, Red Sox, Marlins.
Mariners, Mets. Mike Cameron.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, you know,
he only
Dub.
hit. I thought he had more homers than that.
278's pretty good.
No, I thought it. Yeah, but I thought Mike Cameron was like a 350 guy.
Yeah, he great
Didn't
career.
know he's from LaGrange. That's awesome.
46.7 BWAR.
Put some actual Mets I watch play or Braves I watch play, and I have a chance.
I was stuck on the Reds, but now I'm thinking about it. I can imagine. I'm picturing him as a Red. I didn't know he came up with the White Sox. I didn't have it.
Cameron.
I should know that. He's a Mariner. Great.
Was
Yeah,
it
kind of like
he hit 40
Cameron and
with the Mariners.
Beltran? Cameron and Beltran had one of the most scary outfield run-ins ever. I think it was Beltran.
That's two big
Yeah,
gentlemen.
I was gonna say that's two guys I would not want to run into because I would lose the collision with either
And
one
they'd be
of them.
going. They were like going fast, right? Like that was
Mhm.
even Beltran with the Mets. Like he still had legs. Yeah, they were. I think I remember that happened when I was in New York.
Mike Cameron, man.
Yep.
4 homers. He hit 4 homers in a game.
It hit 30 in 2004. That was his career high in that category. Stole 38 bases for the Reds in 1999. Really good career.
He's
really good
such
player.
a Hall of the Very Good, dude.
Yeah. He was also the guest on Starkville this week. So if you want to check that out, check out The Windup. Starkville, Jason Stark, Doug Glanville had him on as their guest. That episode dropped on Wednesday.
I don't want to say this because I don't think anybody would really support it, but like 50.6 Fangraphs WAR. Yeah, 50. There's a lot of guys with 50 WAR that are in the Hall. That's all I'm saying.
Do you think
he doesn't have the awards? 1 All-Star and 3 Gold Gloves, man. That's really important.
Yeah, but I hate that. I hate
totally
that.
Based on
exactly
production in the field. Brian Dozier.
Yeah, like I hate it. I hate when they
Dozier,
did Rafi Palmeiro get one when he was the DH for most of the year. I like, I don't want to think about when I'm voting. I don't really want to think about MVPs even because I don't think that they necessarily voted the way I would have voted for MVPs back in the day. It's like I didn't vote on those MVPs, so why should I be like, oh, those guys voted this way, so I need to factor that into my thinking process? Like I tend to really ignore the awards when I'm like when people say that. Like people said that a lot about when I voted for Bobby Abreu. They were like, no awards, and I'm like, he would have been top 3 in my MVP, a couple of years in there.
Yeah, but I always just say, is Jose Ramirez a Hall of Famer? And they're like,
yes, is the answer.
Certainly,
but he doesn't have your top 5 every year. Doesn't
he doesn't have
you don't win it?
Yeah.
The other clue I was going to throw at you guys is the players that Mike Cameron was in the same trade as. He was in a trade for Paul Konerko once. He was in the Ken Griffey Jr. trade between the Reds and the Mariners. So like, there's a couple big time trades that he was in over the years. It was flipped again in November of 2005 for Xavier Nady. There's a name that you've probably forgotten about.
Oh, I remember him. Yeah, the Padres first baseman.
Mm-hmm. Yep, one of those guys. Could have been a great name, that dude name, but now I've ruined it by mentioning his name at the end of this episode. Or did I
feel like Cameron could have. Oh, I guess it fell apart a little bit quickly because he had a 110 WRC plus in a full season in 2009, and then he never played even a half season after that. I bet you there were some injuries in there.
Probably, yeah.
Good player, though. Very, very good player. And again, the guest on Starkville this week, so be sure to check that out. Producer Brian put that episode together, said it was a good episode, good interview. So jump in on that. We need to go on our way out the door. A reminder, you can find us on Bluesky. Eno is Sarris.bsky.social. Trevor is I am Trevor May.bsky.social. I am DVR.bsky.social. Thanks to Brian Smith for putting this episode together. That's going to do it for this episode of Rates and Barrels. We're back with you on Friday.
Thanks for listening.